I'm going to ask a question in regards to how things, like I do believe that city council, to a certain degree, there are things that city council needs to do and decisions that need to be made. You can't involve everybody all the time, right?
Right.
But I think that there needs to be, this is where the whole free market and limited government comes into play. When you're going to be, and I don't know what, if there probably, I know there's not because I've looked at the city charter and I'm probably, you're going to have to cut me, but I don't care. So there's got to be a way that when you get to a certain point, whether it's dollars spent or size, that you involve the citizens, that there's a vote, like this huge thing with the city hall being moved. Why that wasn't taken to vote when you're going to put so much money into debt? I mean, those kinds of things, the small day-to-day things, no, we don't need everybody and their dog because you would never get anything done. But I think at some point the big things do.
Yes, and I see where that is an issue, because instead of finding ways to get around taking things to the public, there needs to be a shift in that and involving the public. And I agree. And speaking just as a citizen, especially when was raising kids, and then we have businesses that we're running, and most people have a busy life. You want to elect people that you trust,
Yes.
that you feel like has a pure heart for what they're doing and is looking out for the city as a whole, not any special interest.
Right.
So yeah, trusting that a lot of those decisions can be taken care of without taking it to the voters. But I agree, there's got to be a line there somewhere, and it needs to be set before these decisions come up, that after a certain amount, it's got to go to the voters. Yeah. And then if the voters have said no on things in the past, not looking for a loophole or a way to go around it and still get it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've just got to trust the citizens more and listen to what they really want.
Yeah. We've spent millions of dollars without the accountability of it.
Right. And I will say, on the decisions that I've made in the past on council, always trying to look at the return on investment and trying to find that perfect balance of development in our city, so that we have that diversified tax base, that we have sustainability for 50 years from now to keep up our infrastructure and things like that. So always looking at that, but also in speaking to that, I'll go back to, sometimes I feel like the data that I was given to make those decisions with, I don't know that I was getting the good, the bad, and the ugly.
It was one-sided.
I feel like it has been on some things.
You were being sold.
Yes, and it's not
awful.
I'm not trying to criticize staff, because I know that they're meeting with people and they're getting a good picture too. But I have asked them to please tell me what the naysayers are going to say. Mm-hmm. I'm a positive person. I want to think this is going to be great, but I need to know if 2008 happens again, what does it look like?
Yeah.
What happens worst case scenario? We've got to look at best case scenario, yes, but worst case scenario also, and know that we're going to end up somewhere in the middle of that. Is it still doable? Is it still a good thing?
I was going to say that earlier when Julie was talking about what staff brings to the table. Mm-hmm. We don't know what those numbers are. Mm-hmm. We don't hear about what this project is going to bring to Mansfield and how great it's going to be, and the tax dollars it's going to bring in, or the property tax. We don't know about that. So when we see this, we see that we are overspending. We're not budgeting properly. We're not being responsible with our tax dollars. That's how it looks. And then, of course, going back to the taking on that much debt without taking it to the voters is just, it's not who we are as conservatives. So,
well, and it's also, when it comes to And I think this is probably the bigger problem is the mindset. So when you are making decisions on other people's money, not yours, not yours, on other people's money, I think you have to have, it's a different mindset, and it shouldn't be spent willy-nilly like you'd spend your own money, but more focused on, first of all, does it fall into the pillars of what city government should be focused on to begin with?
Right. Well, and I've said before, it's too easy when you're dealing with those big budget numbers to start thinking about money like monopoly money, and that you really have to be intentional about not doing that and making sure you're remembering that, this amendment on this contract is $45,000. Okay, $45,000 is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in the big budget number, it's a very small percentage of that, but you have to make yourself look at how long does it take someone to make $45,000, and what does that mean to someone? Because we have to watch over those small things to watch over the big dollar amounts. And I'm very happy that since I've been on council, we've been able to bring our tax rate down. We've been able to implement a homestead exemption and then raise that every year. But I know we've got to hit it from all the angles. There are some positive things happening on that side. And then I also know that, as you make more money or you're growing, maybe you move up, you get a bigger house, talking about personally. And then, I've likened that to the city taking on more debt, but also there's got to be a limit to the amount that we're willing to be in debt for, and the return on it.
Reasons why you're in debt.
Right.
What are we doing? What are these projects? And not that I'm saying that the projects are good or bad, because I don't know, but it's a gamble. It's a gamble.
Right. There's no guarantee.
There's no guarantee.
Yeah. And that's what happens when politicians play developer, right?
Yeah.
We own our own business. We can only spend what we're bringing in that is extra. So you have to be mindful there. It's a totally different way of thinking about spending money and investing and things like that when you are a business owner and you're only able to spend what you're making. And I've never wanted the city or city government to look at, well, we're getting all this tax money and we're always going to have tax money so we can do whatever we want with it. You still have to watch over the pennies.
Right. Another thing about planning, I would assume, would be doing these traffic studies prior to bringing in some of these projects. And I have asked some staff if we do that, and there are some big projects that are coming in the future that traffic studies have not been done on. So I don't know how that works and plays a part, other than I know that our traffic is extremely horrible here in Mansfield, and a lot of our community says that that's because of all the apartments and the strain that it's putting on our streets. So no more apartments. We have met our limit on apartments.
I agree.
Mansfield.
We have
no vacancy.
No vacancy.
Hang the sign.
We have a lot that I know that have been voted on that aren't even started going up. What's it going to look like when these developments start going vertical?
Well, and I haven't checked. I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I know there's somewhere between 18 and 20 apartment complexes. I don't know how many, and I don't know how many units that is, but my God, that's a lot.
Well, we have two that are right here that are going to come up within a quarter of a mile of our homes.
Yeah.
Right.
And what is that going to look like in downtown historic Mansfield when they're trying to slow down the traffic and not have so many cars on the road here? What's it going to look like when those two, because I'm not sure, it's like over 500 and something units. I mean, that could be 800
and
cars.
You put 2 cars at least with each one of those units.
Yeah.
Right. That's why there's been more discussion about the Main Street plan.
Yeah.
Because you can't double the amount of people that you have downtown and then half the amount of lanes that you have available for people to get in and out of the downtown. Right. The math does not work.
Maybe that's because the traffic studies aren't done yet.
Right. Well, yeah, and
But
then
even common sense tells you,
Yes.
right.
do the
Yes.
math.
Do the math.
You don't even need to study.
Do the
That's
math.
the problem, is that everybody, common sense, you go, how does that work? Without all of the,
Well, what I've learned is you can make the numbers say whatever you want,
ooh,
and it does seem
there you go.
that way.
And that's why my details will
There you
let
go.
that happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll ask those questions.
well, I'm sure you've all driven down Broad Street, and even where the new stuff is going in there between Matlock and Cannon there, or right where the new 7-Eleven is
Yeah.
along there. Well, there's the sidewalks right there by Broad, and there's benches that are facing Broad, and I'm like, who is going to sit on that bench and watch the cars fly by on Broad? That does not make sense. That's where we do have to look at the common sense of some of the things that are happening.
Yes.
I agree. You had said something about the benches that face Broad Street and the common sense with that. How do these things get passed through without the discussion on council with public? Why are we discussing this? Who's asking those questions? Why are we doing these developments and these non-common sense things without the discussion? Where does it happen?
Right. Well, some of that discussion does happen in executive session, and I know that when you're negotiating incentives, things like that, that is like an executive session topic. Sometimes you get into the nuts and the bolts of a development, and there is a real coercion to be the team. I hear that a lot, and I push back on a lot of things, ask questions, and you end up looking at the whole picture and being the only person that disagrees with some of the things happening. So, well, on the whole, this could be a good development. A lot of these things don't make sense, but we're moving forward.
Which is what you said in the beginning. You're the big picture
Right.
person. So when you're back there, you probably feel a little coerced to come out with the 7-0 vote, is what we have a tendency to have on everything.
Well, and I have no love for developers, but thinking about the wasted money for benches or sidewalks that no one's going to use.
Yeah.
It's a little frustrating. I have said before, it's almost like you get into council and you're hearing from staff, and you do tend to only hear like the one side of things, and so it's easy to just start seeing things that way. And I always joke and say I live with a citizen because my husband is always asking me about it, but not having some of the meetings where it's really accessible for citizens to participate in. They're off times or they're not in the city. I feel like has taken away from some of that transparency, and I would love to bring that back to our citizens and hear more from the citizens and make sure that they're getting all of the information about the different developments, the different policies that are being considered and being put into place, instead of a smaller group of people thinking, well, you guys just don't know what we know and you just need to trust us. Well, we can't say that anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
That does not work.
It's got to be more involvement with citizens and them having a say in what's happening before it happens instead of after the fact.
Yeah, and the other thing is being forthcoming in these meetings. And because I went back and watched council meetings all the way back to 2009 and seeing the difference of how council meetings were ran back then and how they're ran now. There's not as much communication in the open as there used to be.
Right.
And that's the other thing. And there needs to be more of that. And I think that we would bring that to the table. The other thing is that, in watching some of those meetings, there were certain projects that I decided to look into and how hard it was to find where it was voted on, when it was voted on. Very difficult. And so that's coming from somebody who watches on a regular basis and is part of these. I can't imagine how just somebody who just decided to go in and look at the agenda and figure it out, how difficult it would be for them too.
Well, me even being in the middle of it all, there's so much that is going on in this growing city that trying to keep track of all of them. And even when I try to go back and find information about the different projects we've discussed, it's even difficult for me.
Difficult. What are some things that we can do if elected that we can help to bring some of those things out into the public?
Well, I think it's just the members being more willing to have the back and forth with those discussion instead of feeling like we all have to be on the same page when we step out in there to the public. I like the debate, and I appreciated that before I got on council, or when I first got on council, we had a lot of debate. But there was also criticism of if you were asking all the hard questions, then we need to get on board. We need to be moving in the same direction if we want this to be successful. Well, I think you can maybe have a similar goal in mind for what you want for your city, but it doesn't mean you all have to agree on how to get there the same way.
Which is exactly what we said when we first sat down.
Yeah,
That we're
The
very
differences are
different.
good. Yeah.
Yes, and you're going to think about things
Yeah.
that I didn't think about in the situation because we have different experiences,
Right.
and same with you. And that's okay to bring all those differences
Yes.
out in that discussion. And then I feel like that will show the citizens that there is discussion about
Yeah.
it, that it's not just rubber stamp everything that comes through, that there are discussions happening, and then they get to be a part of it. And then they're hearing the different viewpoints as well, because we all look at things differently. And hopefully, you're representing people that, I may not necessarily have those same experiences, and same with you, and then bring those together to make the best project. And that's why I'm running for mayor.
So I guess really ultimately the accountability comes at elections.
For sure.
That's good.